So thank you everyone for joining us this evening on the last of our speaker series collaboration with RHA and NRHH. My name is Rebecca Mangan. I'm the president of NRHH.
Hi, I'm Hayden Smith. I'm the president of RHA, or Residence Hall Association.
And tonight our program will be about social justice and more specifically about social change and how we can all work together and acknowledge our own that we need to move forward from to become better advocates, especially on our campus. So tonight our speaker is Mr. Dar Mayweather. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Dar Mayweather is a leadership studies faculty member at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and has more than a decade of diversity and inclusion in teaching, consulting, and training experience. His professional journey began in corporate, then mental health, before ending up in higher education. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice and a Master's of Science in Education, and is currently pursuing a doctorate in educational leadership at Eastern Michigan University. He received Eastern Michigan University's Student Success and Engagement Award and the State of Michigan's King Chavez Parks Feature Faculty Fellow Award. So, without further ado, Mr. Mayweather.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. This is a really important time for us to be talking about all the things that we need to do. And so I think one thing I want to contextualize for all the people who are on here, I am a fellow resident assistant, graduate hall director, area coordinator, all the great things. I just knew it wasn't going to be an assistant director opportunity for me in housing. Because of just the shift in my focus and my career, and also my family. It was just time for me to move out the residence halls. And so with a wife and child and all that good stuff. And so, and I've been doing diversity and inclusion work for some time, also teaching leadership in higher education. I started teaching actually at the University of Michigan. A lot of my work is centered around intergroup dialogue, social identity development, leadership development, and also inclusive leadership and student and staff development. And really it's my goal is to create lenses for folks. I want you to be able to see, and you can't address problems that you can't see. And oftentimes we want to start with this big thing of social justice, right? And what we really need to do is take a couple steps back from that. And so it's a necessary thing because social justice is so broad. It's huge. It's just the magnitude of the work that you need to do to be a full-fledged social justice advocate will take about 10 years. Okay. And I say that to say, because I've literally tracked my own change, my own personal transformative educational leadership process to become the educator that I am today. When I graduated from college in 2007 with my bachelor's degree, I wasn't known as a diversity guy. Went to my master's program, I wasn't known as a diversity guy there. I actually even did my master's thesis on student giving and student alumni relations versus anything as relates to diversity. It wasn't until I got to the University of Michigan in my first hall director position where I was offered opportunity to teach a social justice class to RAs, which really let me know the breadth of social justice and what it takes to be an ally and advocate. And also, I was teaching students things that I wasn't practicing in my own life. And so really, it was a journey for all of us, as they were learning from me through the curriculum that I was presenting. I was learning from them on how to share experiences, on how to talk about our lives as students and staff and faculty members on a university campus as it relates to inclusion, as it relates to belonging. And one of the first things that we talked about was social identity. And why talk about social identity in the first place? And so I'm actually going to pose that question to you all as a pop quiz. So what is social identity? Do anybody know the difference between social identity and personal identity? And how is that connected to social justice? So anybody have an idea or want to just take a guess at what is social identity? What's the difference between social and personal identity? And how is it connected to social justice? Anybody want to take a try?
Would social identity be how like society identifies you?
Partly, yep. Absolutely. Partly, yep. Emily?
I was kind of going to say the same thing. I was going to say the social identity would be more how you feel society looks at you. And, personal identity would obviously be like how you view yourself in the world kind of thing. So I was going to say kind of the same thing.
Yep. Yep. I mean, so both are correct, right? The big difference between social identity and personal identity is that personal identity is really not connected to characteristics in which how society views you. And so, for example, if you're a dog person, would that be considered a social identity or a personal identity?
A personal identity.
And why would you say that?
Because it really only relates to you, kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. People would most likely not say, because you're a dog person, we don't want you on this team, therefore we don't hire you for this job, right? People will most likely not say, because you like the color yellow, or you like pizza, that we're going to exclude you from whatever, right? Whereas we may have heard, if you're gay, if you're lesbian, if you're Black, if you're disabled, if you're right, like if you're uneducated, you don't belong in certain spaces, right? And so that's the major difference between social identity and personal identity. And so how is it connected to social justice? Now that we know, like, right, like we talked a little bit about the differences, and I'll go back into it. How is that connected to social justice?
Would it be because like social justice was really like concerned with like overcoming the problems that might be with like your social, or like the things that might hold you back or might hold certain like social identities back? Sorry.
Some of it, yeah. I mean, it's a good description to talk about an issue that is connected to social justice. My idea around social justice is literally the intentional inclusion and belonging and safety of all people in an environment that provides equity and equality for any individuals in that community. And so for me, it's the safety and belonging and equity is critical. If you don't understand equity, if you don't understand the difference between equity and equality, meaning in the equality space, if I'm hungry and you're thirsty, what a person who's practicing equality would do would give us both water or give us both food, even though I'm hungry, you're thirsty. Equity is like, hey, I'm hungry, you're thirsty, somebody provides you water, somebody provides me food, right? I get what I need, you get what you need. And how can we provide people what they need if we don't know the stories behind the identities they hold? Okay. And so thinking about that, there's also a level of awareness that needs to be included in that, right? I can't include you, I can't make you feel belonging unless I know how I fit into this space and how I've been introduced to it and how I've been made to be belonged, or I'm made to feel belonging in the space. And so you need to be aware of who I am. How do I show up? What do I see? What do I notice? What don't I notice? So that I can make sure that I'm being equitable in the work that I do. And so with that, we're going to do a little activity. So I want you to know that this whole understanding of social justice also comes with an understanding of privilege and marginalization. If we don't talk about privilege, we don't know how we're showing up and how we're impacting people who might not have it, right? Also, we don't know the opportunities that we have to be inclusive if we don't see the privileged identities that we do have, right? I believe that having privilege is an opportunity, right? As a male with a very deep voice that carries, when I work with women, it is an opportunity for me to show my allyship when folks are not paying attention to or adhering to or listening to my counterpart, right? But if I don't know that I have male privilege, I can't even acknowledge the fact that maybe my counterpart, who and sometimes has been women, especially working in all male groups, are not being heard. And so we need to know who we are. We need to know where we stand. And so we're going to do an activity. There should be a on your screen or something. It should be something somewhere that says more, I believe. And then under that, it says annotate. I believe all the way at the bottom, it says annotate. Give me a thumbs up when you found it.
I think you may have to share something on your screen first in order for us to have that option.
Got it. Let me do that now then. Do you all see it? Perfect. I'm gonna move you all onto my main screen. Okay, there we go. And so this is a worksheet that I've created that has been adapted by the Social Justice Training Institute. If you have not heard of the Social Justice Training Institute, I highly recommend that you look it up, sjti.org, one of the spaces that really helped me learn about who I am as it relates to social justice. And if there's something in the chat box, Hayden or Rebecca, just let me know that I need to address if somebody has a question or anything like that, because I just can't see it right now. And so we're going to start here by, you're going to literally put a dot or something, try to make it as small as possible near or on the space that you identify as, right? Whether if it's your age, are you between 30s to 50s, early 60s, or are you younger or are you older? I want you to put a dot on the side, right? Or a check mark or whatever, right? And usually try to keep it outside of the words so that we can still see them, but sometimes even Zoom still messes up. So, sometimes we might just have a dot all the way in the corner somewhere. I have no idea what happens. And so start filling that out. I want everybody to do it, like everybody to do it. I want every single person on this call to start filling this out. And so when I say hierarchical levels, again, I'm talking about people who are in power positions, right? And then students, right? Talking about race, right? If you're white or if you're a person of color, biracial, indigenous, your sex, right? Male versus female, intersex, gender identity, hierarchical level, so sexual orientation. Also, I want you to know this is not an outing experience. And so I'm not expecting you all to, identify who you are, what you checked, but this is also a practice. And so it takes courage to share who you are vulnerably. It takes courage to share your experiences. And so, once we do dive deeper, talk more just about your thoughts and feelings as you did do this assessment or do this worksheet. Yeah, we're getting down to the bottom. I see a big thing I also like to point out is that race and ethnicity are totally different. Being in America, we oftentimes like to put the two together. But if you do racial scholarship, you learn that race is actually more of an American concept. If you go to other countries, they usually don't identify Black, white, Latino, middle, that's just not a thing for them, they're usually focusing on ethnic heritage, which is usually connected to geographic area, traditions, customs, cultures, right? Race is just your skin color. Yeah, we got some. Yeah, we getting to the bottom. We got a few folks still putting it together.
I
We
have a
got a
question.
whole arrow over here. Go ahead, please ask.
What is years of experience?
Years of experience, I like to look at like in a professional setting or whatever setting we're in. Sometimes when I'm doing this in like with like a whole like department of residence life or whatnot. You have folks who are directors, right, all the way to folks who are undergrad, and so that is a contextual space, right? Residence life is its own profession in a way, and within that you have folks who have levels of experience in that. Yeah. And what we know is that we always treat the newbies like crap. Let's just, or if you on the on the totem pole, you get treated like crap. It's just, and which why we have them on the marginalized side. Yeah. So what are you folks noticing about this group? This is you. You're looking at you on the screen right now. As a group, what are you seeing about yourself?
A lot of privilege.
Say more about that, Caitlin. Say more.
I think this could be somewhat reflective of our student body at UNC Wilmington. We do have a lot of privilege. I think the socioeconomic status of a lot of our students and their families is pretty high. There's so much to say. There's a lot of clumps, at least in this group right now. There's a lot of clumps, a lot of people that are very like-minded and perhaps can be indicative of the organizations that we've joined, not just for the goals of the organization, but for the people that are in them, gravitating towards people that are more like you instead of those that are different. That's just my first thoughts.
Yep. Your first thoughts are great. Okay. First thoughts are great. And way to kick us off, because I feel like I saw a few head nods. I'm interested in hearing a few other voices. Just what do you see? And don't be afraid to say the same thing. Like, let that be the jump point.
I see a lot of cisgender gender identity,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of currently able-bodied.
What does that mean to you?
Privilege. Just to be honest,
At a massive scale, absolutely.
I think we all kind of fit or most people fit what society sees as like normal.
Yep. Absolutely. You are normal college students who should just who might need a job, might not, right? You go to classes, you get your work done, you've been prepared for this, you might be on a slight schedule, or that schedule is in your head, so you know exactly what you need to do to get to through your 4 years and get out of here, right? Absolutely.
On the flip side, I feel like that means that people who aren't cisgender or who aren't able-bodied lack that sense of belonging, which can really affect their sense of self-worth.
Emily, you came in at the right moment. Thank you, right? Like,
no problem.
Because at the end of the day, y'all want to talk about social justice, but are we talking about this? Right? Like, give me a thumbs up if you probably had conversations about social justice. Give me a thumbs up, whether the icon or whatever, right? Now, give me a thumbs up if you talked about your privilege and your marginalized identities in this way, how we just did. A few. So went from half to a quarter. Okay. It's so necessary for us to see ourselves in these spaces, because we then see who might not belong, right? When they come to work with you, like you specifically, like this group of people on the call right now, you getting a chance to see who might have some experiences where they might not feel like they fully belong. And even within these experiences, there are subgroups, right? So like race, we don't just put people of color in one race, right? It's Black people, it's makes, you know, less Latino people, it's Native American people, it's Asian people, and how do we make sure we are in understanding of all of them, not just them as a group of people, right? Because then that just makes us look bad, right? Like this just makes us look bad. The second part about this that I like to really bring out is that oftentimes we like to talk about ourselves through our marginalized identities. And so all the times I've been hurt, all the times I've been excluded, all the times that I felt like I didn't belong. But if you look at this chart, there should be some conversations about your privilege and how often do you actually tell stories about your own privilege, right? We need to do that too. It's very easy for us to get trapped in this idea that we have more marginalization because of a few experiences. But what privilege does is it creates a sense of blindness, right? So I don't necessarily think about my white race, right? I don't necessarily think about my maleness. I don't think about my appearance. I don't think about my gender identity. I don't think about my sexual orientation. I don't think about my religion. I don't think about my ethnic identity. I don't think about my size. I don't think about, like, you see how, like, all these things. But usually, and I do this a lot, especially when I'm working with teachers. What we know about education is that mostly the teachers are white women. And so I hear a lot from my white women about, you know, being a woman, how it sucks and how they don't get the opportunities to move up, and all those things are true. But why don't they talk about their whiteness? Never talk about that, right? Never talk about their age. Never really talk about their education, right? Like what it took to even become a teacher, especially a teacher in these times. We don't often talk. I don't often hear about that when I'm working with these groups. And so it's my job to bring that out because there's stories that's behind those that also create context to the work we do. Okay. Anybody have any questions, any thoughts, any comments before we move forward? Okay. Laid it on you. I know, I get it. I get it. That was like, whoa, I can't believe he started with that. Like, you know? So I'm going to clear all of these. I'm going to move us. Okay, so social identity, our sense of self, how we define ourselves, how others define us within our first culture or other cultures. And so I like to say this is really important because social identity, oftentimes we think, oh, it's just how I see myself, right? And oftentimes you have a person who sees themselves as something that they're probably not. And a good example of that is famous NAACP leader Rachel Dolezal. White woman, born white, ended up marrying a black man, having black children, then got active in the community in the NAACP and identified as a black woman. Okay. And this happens more often than you think. Okay. So, and she was passing, moved up the ranks in the NAACP posing as a black woman until her parents was like, yo, we white. Ain't no way she's black, like to the news, right? Like this became a national thing, but it started in their community. And reporters would come to her home and be like, hey, so, we know all this work you're doing, blah, 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 but we talked to your parents. And then that's when she and she knew what was about to happen. The issue with this is it doesn't work in reverse, okay? And so if I showed up here with y'all today and was like, hey, my name is Dar, nice to meet you all. I'm a UNCW leadership lecturer, in college education, I identify as a white man. Y'all be like, what? Y'all would be like, huh? Like, right? It's because it just doesn't work like that, right? Like how we have constructed race and our understanding of race. I can't go into spaces and say I'm white, right? I just can't do that. But we have also constructed race so that white people can be anybody. And that's the part of the problem, right? And so we need to be able to have both how you see yourself, but also how others see you, because you have people who literally try to act like somebody else. Now we do have this new levels of work out there that talks about transracial identity, which comes out of a lot of Asian scholars, specifically, children who was born in China in a time where you can only have one child, and so they had to be adopted. And usually Americans adopted those Chinese or Asian children. They come to the United States and they're raised as white children in white families, but they're Asian. They're disconnected from their ethnic identity. And so there is a body of work that is coming out that talks about transracial identity. I still don't think we have gotten to a point where Black people, that white people, that Black people can say that they've been transracial, right? I don't think we've gotten to that point. Even if you Black and you grew up in a white community with all white parents, you're still Black. Like so we still got work to do, right? I just use that as an example. We talked about the difference between personal and social identity. Right, individual characteristics that do not necessarily have impact on how society views your relationship to those characteristics. So, you will most likely hear everybody who likes the color yellow are blank, and that impact your livelihood, right? And so knowing that, that is a clear distinction. A lot of students get that, mixed up when we're doing work on this in class. And this is literally a lecture that I do in class. So my students get a full dose of this stuff, right? This idea of social identity is like an iceberg. So again, before we even start talking about the things that we need to do to be social justice advocates, do we recognize the things that we do see and the things that we can't see, right? And so you have things that are like, like race. You might be able to see sex. You might be able to see ability status, specifically physical abilities. There's a few, right? That's like up there at the top, give you some contextual understanding of who a person is once you see them. There's a lot more that you just cannot see, don't know it's there. And what I tell leaders is, think about it like this, like, your community, your followers, whoever you call it, right, is this iceberg, and you are the Titanic, right? And if you assume that is just this, the whole ship going down, everybody going down, the violin is playing as the ship goes down, right? Like, it's evident it's going to happen. The collapse is going to happen, right? Like, this is a reality of this, having to have this understanding of social identity. And if we want to get to social justice, you need to have an ability to see that there are things that you don't see and things that you do see. And those things also have a story behind it as to how we help people feel like they belong, help people ensure that they feel like they're getting the equity they deserve, helping people feel like they're getting the safety that they deserve. Okay, if we compare, I have this funny. It's a funny moment I have with my friends, because the election is coming up, right? And a lot of folks are nervous. And I talk with a lot of people, and I've never really say this in public to them, but I laugh in private. And so I've had a lot of white men for some reason come to me and be like, yo, I'm just so nervous. I'm so nervous for it. And I go back home and I talk to my wife, I talk to my friends, I talk to my colleagues, and I'd be like, yo, I had some people who come to me, it was like, I'm so nervous. And they're like, about what? They're like, what are they nervous about? Like, I don't understand, like they're nervous about democracy. Okay, that's what they're nervous about. I'm nervous about my livelihood. Like, literally, if Trump loses in Wilmington, we already had cops say, I cannot wait to gun down Black people. Cops in Wilmington. This is literally made news. This made national news. Cops in Wilmington has literally said, I can't wait to gun down Black people. And so while some of these white guys that I've talked to, right, are nervous about democracy, I'm nervous about my family. I'm nervous about my life. I have a 5-year-old that I send to school every day. Well, not every day, but Mondays and Tuesdays. I'm nervous about his life, right? Like my family. Like and again, if you want to talk about social justice, but you have no understanding of social identity, you're going to do it wrong. Right? Because I'm not saying that those people are trying to compare. I'm not saying that they're bad people, but what I'm saying is they don't have the lens. And so when they see me, they think we're just talking as men, right? We're just men having conversations about democracy. When I'm like, no, it's a lot more than that for me, bruh. And that's the truth, and there's evidence behind it, right? So like, and the cop that said that he wanted to shoot like Black people is still living in Wilmington, like still around. So just because he doesn't have a badge on doesn't mean he still don't want to shoot Black people, right? Like that's a real thing. And so again, to contextualize, and I can talk about a lot of different experiences, but I talk about things from my lived experience because I want to share that the level of vulnerability that is needed to engage in these conversations is at a courageous level, a brave level, not for the weak, not for the observer, not for the people who want to sit the bench, right? Like leadership is not a spectator sport. And so if you're not willing to share not only your own learnings, but your own growings, then you're not ready to do social justice. How I started this whole conversation was I wasn't the diversity guy. Like, was not that person. Made plenty of mistakes, oppressed plenty of people, especially women, especially people from the LGBT community. And so I had a lot of unlearning to do before we can start doing the work of social justice. Okay. Okay, so this idea, now I'm introducing you to this idea of multiple identity, which is not to be confused with intersectionality. Both intersectionality is important, right? But I also want to recognize that intersectionality comes out of the work of Black queer women who are specifically talking from a marginalized experience. And we're talking about Black queer women, we're talking about women who mostly live on the marginalized side of the worksheet that we did, okay, or have most of their experiences are coming from the marginalized side. And so it's interesting when I see people from majority identity talking about intersectionality. Right? It's very different. It's very interesting. But again, not to be confused with intersectionality. Multiple dimensions of identity describes the dynamic construction of identity and the influences of changing context on the relative salience of multiple identities, such as race, sexual orientation, culture, social class. Essentially, what this is saying is you have a salient identity experience, and that's how you live your life. Very close to how you introduce yourself is mainly connected to how you really live your life in your most salient identity, which meaning you're most prominent, right? I identify as a Black man. Those are my salient identities. And literally, I mean, many times I share that because that's what I'm most comfortable telling people. Usually you introduce yourself through the most salient identity that you have. And so do you say I am a white woman, or do you just say I'm a woman, right? Do you say I'm a man, or do you say I'm a white man, right? Do you even introduce yourself through your sexual orientation? You know, like, hey, my name is Dar, I'm heterosexual, right? Like, most likely not, right? Which, again, unless you're in a community that you really feel comfortable with, right? And so, again, knowing the difference between salient and non-salient identity is going to be it's critical to understanding how to work with people across social justice issues. Okay, keep going. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna blow through it. So we only got 20 minutes left, and I want to leave some time for questions. Dang, I had another activity, so I'm gonna get to that. This is a model. I have a worksheet that's also associated with this. If you would like it, send me an email. But essentially, it says we all have core characteristics. Those things don't usually change over time. So if you are a kind person when you were a child, most likely you're going to be a kind person when you grow up, right? If you were adventurous as a child, you're going to be adventurous as you get older. You know, y'all get what I'm saying, right? And so what that also says is that what this model also says is that within that, our identities exist, whether we're closer or farther from the core. And the more salient your identity is, the closer to your core it will be, right? And so this is not me, but this is an example of a person whose race and probably personal culture, family culture is close to their core, whereas their sexual orientation, their social class is not so much. And so that impacts, again, how we see the world. And then you have this contextual bubble around us, right? So the things that influence us, our family background, institutions that we come from, cultural conditions, personal life experiences, life decisions, career decisions, how we contextualize those things help us see what is most salient or not salient to our identities. As much as I try my best to not be the diversity guy as a undergrad student, as a grad student, it still came, it still happened, right? Like it still was a part of me. And that's because of the contextual environment of people who I was around. And essentially, I guess, my own life path, right? Like as a person who literally tried to avoid being pigeonholed into diversity, now I'm a diversity educator. And so we don't oftentimes see sometimes that our core identities that's like our most salient identities are connected to our career paths. And so for you all, you probably should be thinking about that as well. We're not going to get to that. Meaning making filter. Okay, so I want to explain this and why this matters so much. And so we all get cultural influences. They come into us. They impact us, whether it's coming from churches, families, schools, wherever, right? We get all these different types of experiences. If your meaning-making filter is really developed, that means that a lot of those contextual influences don't get in, which usually don't impact how you see your identities, how you see yourself. If your meaning-making filter is underdeveloped, a lot of cultural influences come in, right? Which then you can take on ideologies that might not be your own. For example, if my son, I can be talking, having a lot of conversation. As soon as I say the word shit, he's gonna be like, shit. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, if as soon as I'm doing something that's probably not my norm, he gonna take it up, right? This is the same when we're talking about racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism. You get that from somebody, somewhere, and your meaning-making filter was underdeveloped. And so I'm not blaming you for your oppressive behaviors. I'm blaming the institutions and communities that you come from and you absorbed it, right? You took it in, you made it your own for whatever, better or worse, whatever. We all have biases. I'm not here to tell you what you are or what you're not, but they're there. I know they're there. We're not going to argue about that. Right? So, and then I'm not going to talk about that part, right? But now this part, we all have experiences, right? We all have had personal experiences with these identities, and they matter because you need to know what you know about yourself and what you don't know about yourself. And how do you contextualize what experiences matter the most versus what experiences don't. And so we're going to have to go into the annotation again, and I'm going to ask some prompts. So let me know, y'all ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready.
Question about someone who knows Zoom a little bit more. Is there a way that when we do annotations that people's names don't pop up? Because I
Have
want y'all to
names been
be as
popping up?
honest. Yeah. Or is that
Oh,
just for me because I'm the host? Can you guys see each other's names when
maybe
they
it's
put?
just for you.
I could see it too.
Yeah, they kind of flash in and out sometimes.
Okay, can you maybe change the security settings? I'm gonna stop the share right now.
You're good. I'm looking through all the settings right now to try and see. But I thought I would ask before.
Yeah, and this is not an outing experience. And so if folks are like, I don't want to answer that question because somebody might see me, I get that too. Yeah, let me know when you're ready. I'm gonna pull up my sheet actually while you're doing that.
Would someone actually Google for me as I look through the settings and see if there's a way to turn off names when you go to annotate on Zoom? That'd be super helpful.
Yes, look at the teamwork makes the dream work.
Advanced.
I think I found something. In the screen share menu at the top of your meeting screen, click the More button, select the Disable Attendee Annotation option from the drop-down menu.
Okay. Mr. Mayweather, will you share your screen again? And then I'll try and do that.
Just call me Dar.
Dar. Okay. Caitlin, will you say that again?
Yes, ma'am. In the screen share menu at the top of your meeting screen, click the More button, select the Disable Attendee Annotation option from the drop-down menu.
It might have to be on his end since he's sharing a screen too.
Yeah, I think it might. Would that disable people's ability to annotate
Yeah, I'm wondering that.
completely?
Yeah, I don't have any.
Possibly.
Yeah, because I just saw Keith's name and he put he was the one who put that check mark there.
Let me try.
Is it only when your cursor is hovering over the check mark?
Oh, I got it.
Oh, never mind. Cool.
I think so. Stop. All right, try again. Nope. Okay.
Oh, is it? How y'all doing? How we going?
Dar, if you will actually go, because that you will have to do that on your side.
Okay, where do I go?
Click more,
Uh-huh.
and then click.
I name the annotators. Perfect. Awesome. All right, let's
Thank
do
you,
it.
everyone.
Okay, y'all ready? Oh, wait, I'm gonna try to clear these annotations. Hold on. I'm gonna clear them right now because I'm gonna ask you prompts and then you're gonna answer them based on where you're at. Okay. All right, everybody can see the screen. You ready? Okay. This aspect of my identity I am most comfortable discussing. This aspect of my identity I am most comfortable discussing. I just want you all to see. Okay. And usually this, again, when you're thinking about most comfortable discussing, you think about identities that, your most salient identities. These are the identities that come, that just are fluid for you. You don't even really even think about sometimes. It's very, might even be connected to our own privilege, right? Because we don't think about it. But we're just really comfortable talking about it. It could be connected to family heritage. It could be just that I feel that my family really celebrates this, right? So my family has really educated me around this identity. Okay. All right, just take a look there. You see what folks put there, right? I'm gonna clear this. All right. This aspect of my identity, I am least comfortable discussing. This aspect of my identity, I'm least comfortable discussing. This could be around a bad experience. This could be about a bad time in your life. This could be connected to bad times with family. This could be connected to a hard argument. It could even be connected to a breakup situation, right? We don't know. You just know that I'm just not really that comfortable talking about this aspect of my identity. Okay. All right, take a look there. I'm gonna clear it. I think about this aspect of my identity the most. I think about this aspect of my identity the most. This could be connected to safety, right? This could be connected to a level of consciousness. This could be connected to your work. This could be connected to research. This could be connected to just a hard time again, right? Where I wasn't my best self, and I didn't show up in the way that I needed to. This could be connected to your allyship, Okay. Okay. Nice. All right, take a good look. Clear. I know the least about this aspect of my identity. I know the least about this aspect of my identity. Again, this could be connected to why you feel the way you feel about what you feel, about this identity. This could be connected to family and just them not talking about this ever, right? This could be a long lost part of your cultural identity that you don't really know, your social identity that you don't really have that much interaction with. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, this also be connected to privilege, right? Like I don't need to know what it means to be a man because it's a man's world, right? Okay, I'm gonna clear this. Oh, we still got people going. Take a good look. I have experienced the most joy around this aspect of my identity. I have experienced the most joy around this aspect of my identity. Again, this is connected to just happiness. This is connected where you feel belonging, right? This is connected, like these is when you go to these spaces, the sense of belonging is so much there that you really don't even think oftentimes that that's what connected y'all. It's just a sense of happiness that comes with the communities that you exist in around this identity. Absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna clear this one. I've experienced the most pain around this aspect of my identity. I've experienced the most pain. Again, this could be connected to hard times. This could be connected to a specific incident. This could be connected to a time where you were excluded. This could be could be connected to a time where you were hurt, whether that's emotionally, physically, mentally. This could be connected to a college experience or a childhood experience.
Could you repeat the prompt again?
Yep. I have experienced the most pain around this aspect of my identity. Right. I've experienced the most pain. All right. Yeah. Got some people telling some truths here, right? You see, we all have these experiences, right? Like, and some of us are in boxes with other people, some of us are not. It's just, that's just how it goes sometimes, right? We sometimes have a community we can work with. Sometimes we have a community of self that we have to work through these things with. This aspect of my identity is most invisible to others. This aspect of my identity is most invisible to others. And I got 2 more prompts, and then we can just open this thing up for questions. I'll read that again. This aspect of my identity is most invisible to others. Yeah. Usually, religion, huge, right? Ableness, huge for this one as well, right? This is the times where people maybe assume things about us, or people may have thought that you were one way, or thought that you lived your life one way, or you value one thing and you really didn't, right? Or you really did value one thing and live your life one way and they thought you didn't, right? Yeah. I'm gonna clear these. This aspect of my identity, I have to defend the most. This aspect of my identity, I have to defend the most. Yeah, this aspect of my identity, I have to defend the most. Right, and this could be, again, this one is a interesting one, because oftentimes we defend things because we are defensive, and we don't think about it through a privileged lens. We think about it through a marginalized lens. And so we are like, oh, people judge me because I have this identity, not thinking about how many people that person may have interacted with from your identity group, that they had to correct, that they had to correct, that they had to work through some trials and tribulations with, that they had some problems with, right? Oftentimes when we think about marginalized experiences, or people who have marginalized experiences, we're thinking about them as if I'm the first person that they interacted with that had this thought process, right? And that's not true. Usually if somebody tips over or had a tipping point with you, is because you're like the 18th person they had that interaction with, right? Absolutely. And then the last one, as it relates to social justice, I think about it through this lens of identity. As it relates to social justice, I think about it through this lens of identity. And that's an open-ended question. I'm not saying who you advocate for. I'm not saying who you live for. I'm not saying who you want to do for. I'm not saying who you're doing for. But just as it relates to social justice, this is the lens that I think about it through. And hopefully this is giving you the courage to say, maybe I need to learn more about not just myself, but others from this group. If this is the lens that I really want to work from, right? I need to know about race. I need to know about my race. I need to know about other people's races. I need to know how race is connected to these other identities, right? In order for me to do social justice, I need to have a solid understanding of one of these first, and then you move to the others, Okay. All right, I'm gonna clear this. And I'm gonna stop. And so, first, initial thoughts, initial feelings. What do you gather from just doing that activity with this group?
I think for me, I've never looked at something to take up so much of my identity. It's something that maybe other people don't know about me, and yet it consumes a lot of my identity, and I never thought about it that way.
Mm. It makes you question, are you showing up authentically? Right? It may cause the question of, is that person authentic enough for us to really have a good relationship? Right? Like it's not just about you, right? It's about our community. And so if we are not showing up in our authentic self, why should we? Well, we expect people to show up authentically to us, even though we are not showing up authentically with them. Something to think about. Other initial thoughts?
As I was seeing a lot of the, things appear on the various questions, my mind was just thinking about there's some stories here, right? And how do I learn those stories and how do I understand those stories? So we all have stories, right?
Lots of stories, right? And I teach meaning making. And one of my students was on Gabby Turner. She's on this call. She hears me ask this all the time. What does that mean? And we talk about meaning making structures, right? So like values, norms, culture, policies and protocols, pathways, path goal structures, mission and vision, and the biggest, most important meaning making structure to me is storytelling. Something means something to you, you can tell a story about it, about how much you value it, about how much you love it, about how much you care about it. When something means something to you, you do something about it. And so, and I say this objectively, right? Because I say this to executives all the time. If in the case of a residence hall, right? If we sometimes there are students who put up those signs on orientation day, like drop your daughter off, I want to sit on your son's face, or drop your mom off too, right? Like that happens all the time, right? And people chuckle, people laugh, people think it's funny. And what I'm here to do is tell you that the issues of sexual assault, sexual violence against whomever, gender assault, gender violence doesn't mean anything to you, right? That's probably why you don't do anything about it. And that's probably why you perpetuate sexual assault culture in communities that you're in. And they're like, whoa. They're like, whoa, right? We already know for the person that put it up, it doesn't mean anything to them, right? We already know that. But when you laugh, when you joke, when you play it off as not serious, when that's lets you know how much that might mean or not mean to you. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now we thinking like, dang. Okay. What other reactions just to this activity? Or if anybody can even bring it home to social justice. Why did we talked about social justice, but we didn't, right? Why did I do this first before just diving deeper into the social justice space? Do y'all really have an understanding? Tell me the overwhelming takeaway from this. Oh, I will call on you too. So Kinsley.
I'm one of those people where it takes me a minute. Like I have information being fed into my brain and I have to process it or I'll sound stupid.
Yeah, you're a processor. I get it.
I will respond, but I do need a minute.
And we're going to wait because the floor is yours. right? And this is what I do.
Okay.
Again, leadership is not a spectator sport. If you want to come to my class, if you want to get an A, you're gonna talk. Otherwise, you know.
That is true. He will make us talk.
I mean, I feel like, to me personally, it's just it kind of just made me sad. I feel like a lot of times I'm jaded with things. Like I'm just like, well, things suck and that's the way it is. And there's not much I can do my best to like be aware of other people and what's going on. But a lot of the times it's like easy to feel defeated, but it's like everyone has that feeling at some point or another with something in their own lives. With some struggle, with some experience that they have that maybe no one else around them does. And so I feel like kind of the first, I mean, I really personally have never evaluated my privilege to really that in depth. And I think that is kind of like you have to be able to acknowledge that. I like what you said earlier about acknowledging, like when, we speak about our troubles, but we don't speak about our privilege. And I just think that is like the first step, like things like this, acknowledging where you stand in society, personally, how you see yourself, how you think other people see you, before you can move on with social justice. But yeah.
Love it. Love it. See, look at you being way more courageous than you thought you. Look, let's give her a round. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I do in class too. I'm serious about this like affirmation thing. It's so important for us to just try to say what we feel, because as leaders, we don't get time to process all the time when these issues come up. We have to be in spaces where we have done the practice, right? So that when we do get in the game, you actually know how to take that shot. You know what I'm saying? Like what we often try to do is hide. We go to these spaces and we observe. We go to these spaces because we want to learn. And leadership learning is doing. And so if you're not taking the chance to do it, you're not really learning. Okay. Lizzie, let me hear from you.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of important topics. One that stuck out to me was like what point of view we look through the most to see like social justice and just like other people. And like a lot of people did like religion and system of beliefs and stuff like that. And like I feel like any of those categories could be for how you like your system of belief.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was like kind of fascinating.
Absolutely. We all enter this social justice thing from a lens, whether you think you do or don't, right? Many of us who start in this space, it's starting because something happened that I just really care about and I'm connected to it personally, right? Like I hold that identity so I understand. My family member is blank, and so I want to be better, right? I see the interconnectedness of my issue with this person's issue, and so that's why I'm also involved in this, right? I'm a racial educator, so I enter the social justice lens through race, and it is very important for me to understand Indigenous Native American culture, because oftentimes people think oppression and racism in America started with Black people. And I have to correct them, right? Like, and I have to correct them in a way that like really sets the tone. Like, what does it take? What kind of person do you have to be? What kind of government do you have to really have to kill 2 million people, right? And then enslave another 10 to 20. And in the enslaving of the 10 to 20, another 10 to 20 died on the way here, right? Like what type of government, what type of leadership, constitutional, colonial achievements come with killing 2 million people. And I'm be real, like I don't come from that group. And so I don't know. And when I talk to white people, they don't either. Right? Haven't even thought about being connected to that history in that way. Like being connected to genociders, like that being in many of white Americans' heritage. We don't talk about that. And that's a whole nother conversation. Right? But it's necessary to know where you enter, right? Because I also need to be able to talk about white history. I can't just be like, I'm a Black person, I don't want to learn about white people. Like, no, like the white racial frame is a real thing. You know, we need to be able to have conversations about the research that has been done on whiteness, on white privilege, on white saviorism, right? All those things. And so, it's critical. Any other thoughts, comments, concerns? We at the 10-minute mark. We like way past time, and I don't want to hold y'all like beyond more. I can keep going. Like I grew up in the Black church. Like I can keep going. Okay, like it don't. I can sit. I remember sitting in the car for hours. Okay, waiting on my mom to just get done talking. Okay. Anything else? Anything I can clarify? Anything else I can help you with? Know that this is work. This is work that my students do, like undergrad students, freshmen, sophomores, doing this work. And so for many of you all are way older than that. And so what's your excuse? Called you in, Caitlin, called you in. Well, if you don't need anything else from me, here's my email, Mayweather D. I put it in the chat at UNCW.edu. Reach out, shoot me an email. If you ever interested in the courses, I teach undergrad courses. At this point, I'll be able to teach grad level courses once I graduate. So hopefully 2021, I'll be done. And I'll be bringing this work to grad level work in the Watson College. And again, you know, I'm here as a resource for you all. However I can be of support, however I can be of service. This is the best work I do, is doing presentations and Zooms and stuff like that. You see the energy that I bring to these spaces. This is always like how I show up. And so, hopefully I was able to be a good role model for you all. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Tonight was wonderful. I feel like I've really learned so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for presenting. I agree with Becca. I also learned a lot from this.
Not only that, but now I know what I have to unlearn, or at least where to start. So, you know.
Yes, absolutely. We are in a space. You know, we are in a time. And for you all, you are being charged with coming up with solutions for problems that your predecessors, family members, colleagues that are already in the industry chose to ignore. And so, you know, best of luck preparing, because it's coming.
Really appreciate the work that you do. And it's so exciting to be part of conversations that make us think when the conversation's done, because it's never really done. So right. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're in this together. We're in this together. And of course, as you all graduate, go out into industry, think of me, you know, however I can be of service, however I can be of work. Actually, I'll share my website. Oh, that's not going to work. Doingthegoodwork.com is my website. Feel free to check it out. And however I can be of service, I want to do that. All right, Hayda, you gonna take us home? Becca, you gonna take us home?
Yeah. So Thank you once more for being our speaker for tonight and having this awesome conversation. And hopefully we can keep continuing this throughout the year. Thank you everybody for joining us for our final speaker series. And yeah, thanks for coming.
Hayden, you unmuted before me, so I was just letting you roll with it, dude. Great job. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Best of luck with the end of the semester, and yeah, that's all I've got to say. Good night, everyone. Thank you.